All right, we are live with season 10, episode 2. I am joined today with portrait photographer Aaron J. Young. Aaron, thank you for taking some time to talk to me about your photography.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into it.
Are you, you're in LA, yeah?
Today I'm in LA. Yeah, I also live in Palm Springs, so I'm back and forth like almost weekly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think the first time we met was in Palm Springs several years ago, right?
Yep. Yeah, you were.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
we met physically in person. Yeah, yeah,
So, Palm Springs is a very interesting and hot place. I had no idea it got to 125 degrees every single day during the summer. It's crazy.
yeah, yeah. It's intense. You kind of have to
Awesome.
like
So,
stay close to the pool.
yeah, every place there has to have a pool. It was just like if you have a house
Yeah,
in Palm Springs without a pool, you're
you're kind of
you're not
screwed.
doing it right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so let's back up. One of the things that I always start with a lot of these interviews is like how you got into photography. So I don't know your actual story of how you got into photography. So let's start there. Like, how old were you, and what was the thing that happened that where you knew like I'm going to become a photographer?
So about 14 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I was visiting Palm Springs, visiting a friend in Palm Springs. And this was when I still lived in Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And he was a photographer. And when I was visiting, he had a couple of photo shoots that he was doing at his house. And they were like portrait photo shoots. And I was just taking some like behind the scenes stuff with one of his old cameras. And that was kind of the beginning. Like that was the first time I ever picked up a real camera and ever tried to take a good photograph. Um, and from there, I mean, that sort of sparked this passion, this new passion. And then from there, I just kept going and like it kind of took over my life, I would say, from there.
So did you ever go to school for it, or how did you learn? Did you mentor under someone else? Did you work in a studio?
So starting out, I was just self-taught. I mean, mostly I would say like 99% self-taught. Um, I just experimented a lot and, you know, kind of honed in on portraits as the thing that I was the most passionate about. Um, and I've done, I believe, one or two workshops in my life so far, which were huge. They were monumental. They were with Felix Kuntz, who's now a friend of mine, but God, it's been a while. It's been maybe not quite 10 years, but maybe more like 8 years ago or something like that, when I took a lighting workshop with him. That was like a game changer for me. And the rest was mostly just like learning online, lots of YouTube videos, making friends who were photographers who were, you know, much more experienced than me, and then kind of learning from them just through getting together and, you know, playing around with stuff. So,
And the other
yeah.
workshop, did you teach one with Johnny?
Yeah. So Johnny and I taught a workshop together.
That's what I thought.
This was within the last couple of years. Yeah,
So is
yeah.
Johnny the wildest person you've ever met? Because I think he's he might be at the top for me.
The wildest person. I don't know if I'd say wild. You know, he's definitely got like a side of him that can be wild, but he can also be, you know, incredibly zen and grounded, and
Yeah.
um, so he's kind of he's a nice combination of like wild and then deep and like introspective in a way that's really cool.
Yeah. Would you say you guys have a similar style of portrait photography, or did I just offend you?
No, I take that as a huge compliment. I mean, we have, I would say technically our styles are fairly different. Um, the thing that I think makes them similar is our ability to connect deeply with our subjects. So I would say the thing that's similar in both of our work is that um, there's this strong human connection coming through the photographs that's really powerful. Um, And then from there, I mean, you know, I tend to light things in a very soft, painterly way, and I think Johnny oftentimes will use sort of like a more high contrast, sort of a little bit harder light um, in how he does things. So yeah, I would say it's more, our similarity is more, I would say, in the energy that we portray coming through, like how we sort of photograph people. Um, and then on the technical side, I would say we're somewhat different.
Nice. So, did you ever think that you would become like a product photographer or anything but portraiture? Did you ever go down the road of another genre?
Uh, Briefly, I mean, like I've done a little bit of like real estate photography a long time ago. Um, but it wasn't something that like I pursued. It was like a friend who was selling their house was like knew that I was an aspiring photographer and like talked to his real estate guy and was like hire him to photograph the house. And then from there, like I photographed a few other houses through the same real estate agency. But it wasn't something that I pursued outside of that. You know, like I didn't go hunting for those jobs afterwards. Um, so yeah, I would say mostly it's just been portrait photography my whole career.
Yeah, I mean, early on, you have to take those jobs. Like I was doing anything and everything when I first, fell in love with photography. It didn't matter what it was. I'll take them. Like
Well,
my
yeah, I mean,
friend.
I wasn't
Uh,
getting any jobs because like
yeah,
I was terrible at marketing and everything. So you know, it wasn't like I was not only not getting uh, photography jobs, I wasn't getting any other kind of jobs either.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
so it
hard
was
to
like,
make it. I mean, it's so hard to make it as a photographer. Like it's so hard. So maybe let's start
yeah.
there too. Like when did you feel like you were like, all right, I think I can build a career out of this? Like what changed? Like where were you?
Well, I mean, I would say like from the first few months that I first picked up a camera, I started thinking about it as like a, you know, maybe I could do this for a living. Um, it was, you know, I didn't know anything about anything, so I was like, how that's going to happen? I don't know how I'm going to make money. I don't know how I'm going to charge for this. Um, so I mean, luckily when I started, I had like another career going, so I could take my time sort of with getting photography going and have an income, which was, you know, incredibly valuable because I didn't have to completely stress myself out over the money aspect of photography. Um, you know, now the money aspect's more stressful because it's like my sole way of making an income. So, you know, I don't have anything else that I'm like falling back on. Um, but for quite a few years I did. So it allowed me the luxury of being able to sort of go at a slower pace, but I don't even want to call that a luxury because it also allowed me to succumb to a lot of my fears and insecurities and just sort of take a long time to really overcome those. If I wouldn't have had anything to fall back on, I may have had to push myself a little harder to just sort of be uncomfortable and make something happen faster for myself. But, you know,
So if you weren't a photographer, what would you be doing?
Uh, if I was, I mean, so before in a previous life, I was a personal trainer, massage therapist, so I could have easily just kept doing that, you know. Um, but if I would have followed a passion that was greater than that, I would have probably went to school and got a master's in like psychology and potentially become like a therapist or something along those
Ooh,
lines.
I could see you in like a really good turtleneck collection, kind of sitting there in a really nice chair, unpacking people's lives.
I
I
would
think that
be I would be a psychotherapist with my own personal line of turtlenecks that
right?
I would,
I
yeah.
can't pull off a turtleneck and I want to so bad. It just
That's
doesn't
surprising
work for
because
me.
I feel like everybody can pull off a turtleneck.
I think I might need your guidance on get the right turtleneck.
If we're ever in the same place again, I should photograph you in a turtleneck. We should
Oh,
prove this idea wrong.
please. So, all right. So when you started making, I guess, success out of photography, were you doing something differently? Was it your work? Was it your networking? Like what led to your success as a photographer?
I mean, honestly, I struggled for quite a few years in having consistency in bringing in money, basically. So I would be, busy for a little while, like, I don't know, a month or something, and then I would make some money, feel really good about the fact that I was making money, feel like, oh my God, happening, and then I would spend all of that money, and then I would be in the same stressed out place I was like a month before, where I was like, okay, now I have to make a whole bunch of money again. Like it was this cycle of like overwhelm of bringing just enough in to sort of get by, spending whatever was left, and then creating this cycle of stress that was just ongoing. And it was really during the pandemic that actually changed everything. Um, because I mean, leading up to the pandemic, like I was making stuff happen. Like it was this consistent, slow, like climb of getting more consistent work. Um, I mean, all of this is so closely related to, for me, in terms of like facing my shame and my insecurities and all my issues around self-value and self-worth, that so as I continued to do that personal work, it affected, you know, my business in a positive way. Um, so I kept growing, and I kept getting more, you know, every time that I would do another shoot, that would be another potential person that would, there'd be word of mouth, there would be, um, I was slowly marketing myself more and being willing to sort of put myself out there more. Um, and then a big thing that sort of pushed me along in a big way was hiring a marketing team, because I just realized that marketing was like this area that I just sucked at, and um, I I basically made the call that it would be worth it to bring on a marketing team that could then sort of take over that aspect of my business and really like push me out in a way that I wasn't able to do for myself. So for the last, I don't know, 4 years now, I've had a marketing team that takes care of all of the like social media marketing. Um, so that's like Facebook, Instagram, Google ads. There's been times where it's covered LinkedIn, um, and also just like making changes to like, because I have a website that's just like my portfolio of work basically, that's more editorial kind of driven, and then I have a studio website that I built with their guidance, so that um, so that I would have a website that if somebody came across this website, it would be very clear that they could hire me. So there's like lots of calls to action. There's testimonials. It's just like I realized that like my other website, there wasn't a lot going on that was really, inviting people to hire me. Like, um, so that's another thing that I has been really helpful in my business. Um, and then it's like you go along and you just don't give up. You just build momentum, I would say. So, in building that momentum, you just keep the ball rolling in the direction of building your business and building, your skills and everything. And I remember a friend of mine who's an artist of a different kind, he told me years ago, he was like, a lot of times it'll take somebody about a decade to go from like starting something to becoming successful enough to like, you know, to consider themselves successful. And that was pretty much what it was for me. It was about a decade of just continually showing up for the process, working on myself on a personal level, working on my business. And then there was sort of a tipping point um, where I consistently became busy, I would say. And then, um, so for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been in that space. I was doing photography solely as my career for about 6 years now. And then a couple of those years was still part of that sort of struggle. And then there was a point where um, I became, and I just, it's been that way ever since.
Nice, nice. I love that story. So in terms of like how you make money, there's a few ways in photography, like commercial licensing, like prints, day rates. Are you kind of doing all of the above? Like how do you charge your clients?
So the primary, like the biggest part of my income comes from just doing like photo shoots, and those most of those photo shoots are are like the thing that keeps me the busiest is um what I call like everyday portrait clients. So that's like somebody who just has a need or an interest in a photo shoot for whatever purpose. I would say like or 80% of the time that's like a professionally driven thing where it's like somebody who's an author or whatever they do for a living, like they need portraits for their brand or for their business. And then there's people who um, they're inspired by whatever's going on in their life. Like it could be some traumatic life experience, it could be some really good life experience that they're having, and they want to sort of capture themselves at this moment in time. Um, and then there's other stuff, but that's like the bulk of how I make money. And then there are other things that come along that are just not as regular as that, that are like, could be something like editorial, it could be something commercial, um, it could be something like, I don't know, I've done things where it's like go to an event for 3 days that's like a big corporate event and they need somebody to like take headshots for 3 days of 250 people. But those jobs are like, they're super simple, not very creative at all. But they're like a moneymaker, because you're photographing so many people, and if you know how to charge for it, you can like that's a great job, a great gig to have. I do a lot of those gigs just because they're easy and they bring in a good amount of money.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's kind of funny. If you don't mind, I'm going to tell the story of me introducing my sister to you because she needed someone. Because I think this is a hilarious story.
oh
If you don't
yeah,
mind.
yeah. I forgot about this. Yeah.
So my sister Anna lives in LA, and I mean she knows kind of what I do, but not a lot about photography. And she's like, "Hey, I have this friend or a friend of a friend who's super wealthy, and they need this like epic photo to be done. And like you were the first person that came to mind." And she also told me right before, money's not an option, or money's no issue, or something like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so he's a super wealthy dude. So I'm like, all right, like Aaron it would be the best. It's gonna be an awesome like heirloom of this like grandkid that they were gonna like print real big or some shit. And I remember like introducing you guys. I was like, I'll let you take it from here. And then like a day or two later, she was like, yeah, the guy was like, that's too much for photography. I'm like, I thought this dude was like a multi-billionaire. And it's just like, oh, it's not even like, it's not that you're charging an insane amount, but you're charging like your worth. And it's not cheap.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just
It's
like
funny. I've had that.
frustrating.
I had a client here in LA who I photographed a whole family, and very, very successful grandparents. I don't know what the kids did for a living, but the grandparents is the house that we were at. And, like top level, like, 1% of the 1% type thing. And money was no. And it was funny because when they came back with wanting, like, I don't know, 30 some images or whatever from the shoot, she also said, like, we've never paid this much for a photographer before. And they were like, not, it's just like, I mean, at this point, it's like that's the sticking point mostly with a job, is like whether or not the client either values it enough to pay what I charge, or if, I mean, there's just people that just can't afford everything. So there's times where they're just like, I can't afford that, like, and that's cool, like I respect that. It's not going to make me like reduce my rates, but I'm okay at this point with not that everybody can afford, and when I started, I thought that I needed to be something that everybody could afford, which wasn't realistic, because it was like there's no way that I could have ever not only sustained a business without burning myself out, but there is no way in hell I could have had the life that I have now if I would have been charging what I charged when I started. It just
Yeah,
wouldn't be possible.
Burnout is I mean, in every industry, but photography in particular, like it turns into like something that you love to something that you hate, and it can happen like really quickly because of the
Yeah.
stress of like doing, especially like if you have a few bad clients here and there. Oh, makes you not want to do the thing you
Well,
love.
yeah, and if you're already secretly resentful for what you're charging, and you're already like it already feels like this massive amount of work that you're doing for a little bit of money, then yeah, then any issue that arises becomes a huge issue because you're already pissed off. You're already like feeling like you're not making enough money. Like you're already stressed about different things, and so it's like yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up for that. You know.
Yeah. So how do you know, like pricing has always been like, when I first got into commercial photography as a producer and a retoucher and just as like an assistant, and I got to
Mhm.
overhear some of the conversations of like, how much is this per day? Like it's crazy at like at a certain level, it just becomes so expensive and everyone's cool
Mhm.
with it because it's,
Yeah.
for a huge corporation. But, for things like portrait photography and like, you're in LA, how do you know how much to charge? Are you calling other people? Are you doing your own research? Like, how do you know what to charge?
So, I mean, the big thing that shifted for me with that was I discovered Sue Bryce like I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago, and that was the first time I saw anybody talking about like undervaluing yourself and valuing what you do, and like um, that blew my mind initially because I was like at that point I didn't know what to charge. I was super undervaluing everything, um, and but I guess I mean I liked what I was hearing and I was like, oh, this is really cool. There's like a huge potential here to, you know, to make a really good living. Um, and uh, so that was also like a slow journey of just like taking in the information and then choosing over time to just start to increase my prices and face those fears and all that discomfort that, you know, comes up as a result. And um, now I, yeah, I've got a couple of friends who have been doing this longer than me, who are more experienced in like the commercial editorial world than I am. And so I will frequently go to them to, I also like, I know that there are people who they don't undercharge, like they're charging like top dollar for what they do. So those are the type of people that I actually want to inquire with. Like I won't bother wasting my time like asking people who be undercutting themselves like what their advice is because so I will go to the people that I know are charging top dollar. And because like my concern went being concerned that I was going to charge too much to now I'm just concerned. And so I want to make sure that I'm always charging like what is I don't want to I don't want to be crazy and I don't want to be like I don't want to be trying to take advantage of anybody ever. I just want to make sure that I'm not undercutting myself with when I'm, you know, faced with some sort of gig that like I don't have experience with. Um so yeah, I'll just like I'll go to them and I'll be like, "Hey, this is what it is. Like what would you charge or like what advice do you have?" And then they'll, you know, they'll give me arc of like, you know, that's the thing when you get into like the editorial commercial world, like there is no like finite guiding thing. It's more like this gray area that there's a lot of things that kind of come into play and things to think about. And so even with them, they'll be like, you know, I would charge like this to this or whatever. And then you kind of like think about all the factors involved and then you kind of come up with something. So, um, you know, it's a weird thing like charging for photography is definitely a weird thing because there is like no just like black and white like this is what you charge so many factors that can come in. I mean you can be like that with portrait photography, you can be like that with like an everyday client, you can have like just like this is what my rates are across the but as soon as you get into like these other realms it just becomes it can get confusing and weird. So
Yeah, yeah. I can't say their name, but I've met a few photographers who have gotten in with the medical, pharmaceutical
yeah.
industry, where
Hmm.
a lot of these companies have been forced to spend X amount of their revenue on like
Hmm.
these like marketing campaigns, and they're
Yeah.
pulling in like 70 to 100 grand a day to take one or two portraits. And like I remember throwing up in my mouth at that rate. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So like they're just forced to get it out the door. to then like make
Yeah.
a portrait of someone who's, you know, either a user or a success story of like whatever drug that they're pushing at the time. I just remember thinking like that is so crazy how
Yeah, I
lucky you
mean, so
must be.
yeah, there was a time when I would hear that and I'd be like, "Oh my God, like how blah blah." Like now, my first thought when you said that was like, "I wonder who I need to market to get that job." Because like
Yeah.
if that's available and that's what's out there and that's what like a company like is willing to spend, like yeah, I want in on that, you know. Like why wouldn't I want to, you know, figure out how do I get a job like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of a lot of the photographers that do that are the ones that have been doing it for 30 to 40 to 50 years and just have such a good reputation, you know, of like
Hmm.
being able to handle anything.
Totally.
Which
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think, you know, that genre or like that generation of photographer is that dying off? Is there this whole like new like photographer, you know, generation coming up that, you know, doesn't really care about? And I'll give you some context. Like Sandro is one of my favorite photographers, and a lot of like the greats, you know, outside of Annie Leibovitz, photographers that are in their early 20s have never heard of. And they're like, I don't know who that is. It's like
Mm,
these are like the
yeah.
absolute greats, like Albert
Yeah.
Watson, Art Streiber in LA. Like most people don't know who Art Streiber is. And it's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, like these are the greats. And like because they're not like pushing themselves on Instagram, no one knows about them. But I don't know.
I think I would imagine that that also has to do with like on an individual basis, like each photographer, what they're aspiring who to be in their own career, you know? Like because yeah, I found that like when somebody is wanting to have like a successful portrait business where you're photographing like everyday people and that's your goal, then I found like yeah, it's common to like not know some of those photographers. Um, the people that I've met who are like have the goal in mind of wanting to have a similar career trajectory as somebody like Art Streiber or uh, whoever like you know is doing that kind of work. I feel like those people tend to find those photographers a little bit more. But that makes sense to me because it's like you know that's the um, I don't know. It makes sense in a lot of ways. Like you know, I'd imagine like if that's like for me, like that's kind of those are the kind of photographers that I look to for my inspiration because that's sort of like the goal is to move more into the world of photographing like the influential people of the world and doing more like commercial work and doing more editorial stuff so um you know and so for me I'm always thinking in sort of like this editorial way like whatever kind of photo shoot I do I'm always thinking like can I capture this person whoever they are in a way that they this could be for like a magazine or this could be for you know for something in that realm even though I might be photographing them just for their own business you know.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about personal projects and your book coming out. So you have a book
Yeah.
coming out, Queen the Book, correct?
Yes,
Let's
so
get
I
into
mean
it.
the book is called Queen, yeah. Yeah,
Queenthebook.com.
queenthebook.com until it's available to in mass it releases December 8th so right before the
Nice. So
holidays yeah.
is this a personal project? Like how did this come about? And is this your first book?
This is my first book, and it's a personal project turned into something more. So, um, I um, I used to work on the show RuPaul's Drag Race like way back in the day, like when I first moved to LA and I just was starting my career. Um, through some fucking fluke, I got this RuPaul's Drag Race, which was like massive opportunity for the level of experience that I actually had at the time. Um, so that was like my introduction to the drag world and then a couple of years later the production company started an event called DragCon that was originally just in Los Angeles and so I believe the first year they did it was 2016 and then 2017 was the first year that I photographed it. um, that year I purchased a couple of booths and then created sort of like a photo studio. um, and it wasn't quite successful in my mind because like my goal that I had was I wanted to photograph I wanted to photograph anybody that was interesting at the event, but one of the things I definitely wanted to photograph was some of the more famous queens. And because we were just like had our own booth and we were just like, we couldn't move around, it was very hard to get those queens to come to us. So that was sort of like, I mean, that was a fun year to do it. And we came through with like a portfolio, or like a body of work from that year. That was still cool. It was interesting. But it was more of like a learning experience for me than anything. Because out of that sort of feeling like, okay, I didn't really accomplish what I set out to do fully, then came the idea to see if we could create some sort of like a roaming photo studio situation the next year, which was 2018. And that's the first year of work that actually is in this book. So sort of out of this sort of like year of experimenting, that the idea came to, like, it was like, could we actually roam around with a backdrop and like a team and lighting situation and go to these queens who are working at their own booths, and that way photograph more of the people that we really wanted to photograph. And I remember even back then, I remember having my own personal goal of like one day turning this into some sort of a coffee table book. But that was like a far off kind of dream, and with no idea of how that could ever come to fruition. It was just a goal that it would happen one day. Started creating the work, and we just started doing it like every year that we could.
So to get this book printed, did you have to pitch it to people? Are you self-funding it? Do you have a publisher? Like, how is this working?
So, I mean, I had a couple of meetings set up. Partner who had just published his own book. Not he'd published like like traditional like book that he actually wrote, and so I'd say it wasn't like a photo book of any kind. And so to a couple of publishers. So I pitched the idea. They were into it, but they were like, it's not right for us. And then I don't have any more connections, so not sure how this is going to happen. And then a publisher found my work of like this specific body of work, because some of it had been published on out.com, and they were specifically wanting to do a coffee table book that had something to do with the drag world. And so they found my work, and they actually hit me up, and that's how like our first meeting happened, was them finding me.
Did you kind of like play it cool, like, oh, I don't have time for this,
No, I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, I don't know, with like anything that shows up initially as a possible opportunity, it's like there's so many things that just like fall through the cracks. There's so many things I've had that were like, oh my God, could be amazing. And then like nothing happens, So until something's like really happening, I'm kind of just take it all with a grain of salt. And I'm like, yeah, like, let's talk about it. Let's see what this is all about and have meetings and stuff. But, it could come to fruition or it could be bullshit, So, yeah, I mean, I was excited. I thought it was a cool opportunity. I'm also like, I'm a really big, like, you're in our thoughts create our reality, basically. And so at the time, I had a whole list of goals that like every morning I would like read my goals out loud to myself, and little like visualization of those goals coming to fruition, and or more like envisioning my life if those goals already had happened. So like one of the goals was that I've published my first coffee table book of the drag work. So it was like, it's already happened, basically. That's how I'd sort of write everything out. And a big part of that process for me is of how it's going to happen. So just sort of like putting it out to the universe. And I believe there's a huge amount of power in intention. So I put this out with intention, and then just do what I could, like what I could come up with towards that goal, but then completely let go of the idea that I know how this is going to actually manifest, and be open to the infinite possibilities that like, this could show up in some way that I least expect, which is exactly what happened. I would have never guessed that a publisher would find my work and reach out to me. Like, I thought the only way that this could happen would be like me going to a publisher. So it was just like a perfect example of what I would say is like proving that this is how shit actually works, you know? And
Yeah, absolutely. You have to manifest
so
it.
yeah, I mean, and it's funny because like I don't really even use the term manifest that much because I know that it's like, I don't know, people have weird ideas about it, and like there's that book The Secret and the movie The Secret, and
Oh, I
people are
use
like,
The Secret to get parking spaces all the time. Before I'm
well,
there, I start thinking about the parking space, and boom, I get princess parking every time. It's great.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I like, yeah, I mean, of course I saw that movie years ago and everything, but I mean, since then I've like expanded sort of my ideas of what actually that all is and how it all works. But yeah, I mean, I totally believe it's happened so many times in my life, in my career, and um, yeah, so that's kind of what happened. I mean, they found me. We started having meetings. Quickly, sort of both realized that it would be a great, it would be a great partnership or whatever you want to call it. And then that I think that was like I think that was like towards the end of 2019 or maybe beginning of 2020 when we had like our first meeting, and then then it was like contract, like you know figuring out all the logistics and like okay, we're really doing this together. And then right after that, COVID hit, and so that just delayed everything by like 2 years. And without COVID, I think this book would have come out probably in like 2021, or yeah, probably like 2021 at the latest, maybe beginning of 2022. Um, and we continued to work at it, but there wasn't like a huge like sense of urgency because everything was so delayed. And, you know,
So, what was your COVID experience like? How did you spend? What time did you get up? What time did you go to bed?
well, okay, so mine was interesting. So power of manifestation. So um, my partner is a journalist, and me being a photographer, the second that we went into lockdown, it was like we are unemployed 100%. It was just like there were no prospects on the horizon in terms of how we were going to make money. It was just done basically. And um so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to just become homeless or whatever. I want to like figure this out. So I started putting out this intention of like figuring out like, okay, how can I make some income? Like how can we get through this? And I had some ideas that I took action on. That also I want to say that like part of how this whole like universal thing that I believe works is like I believe there's a lot of power in taking action kind of regardless of what that action is. Like if you're just sort of like showing up on your side of this whole equation with taking some sort of action, what I have found is that oftentimes the universe then responds with something that would seemingly look like completely unrelated to the action that you were taking, but it kind of gets you there anyways. Like I've had so many times where I was like, when I was in that yo-yo state of my business, where I was like, okay, I'm not making any money. I'm going to send out cold emails to 300 people in one industry. And I would get nothing from those 300 emails, but then all of a sudden the phone would start ringing with people wanting to hire me for unrelated photo shoots. But I just think there's power in like, um, so I was looking at things in that way. I was like, what can I do? I could maybe ramp up selling some limited edition work, some prints. So I started taking action in that realm, and didn't really, not a whole lot happened. And I had this idea, why don't we create a mask company from scratch and just start selling masks? So um, that's what we did. Like, I was like, I don't know how to do this, but it's something to like, it'll, maybe make some money. Like, I don't know. And so we found, I found somebody who was like local. And so we found our person who could like produce the masks. And then that was my little foray into photography, was photographing the masks and using my partner as like the model, creating a website from scratch and like just figuring it all out. So in about 2 weeks, we had like created a business from scratch together. And then just started kind of like anonymously pushing it out through social media. And not a whole lot happened initially. And then all of a sudden, somebody who's like a Facebook friend who I don't really know personally saw what we were doing and was like, had a connection to Amazon. And Amazon at the time was early into lockdown. They were looking for
when we were out of toilet paper. Remember
yeah,
that?
it was pretty much like that time when
Yeah.
we were just starting to be told by the whatever they're called, I can't remember, to start wearing masks. Like basically that was the recommendation. Cloth, put some fucking fabric over your face, basically is what they would say. And so there was like no other recommendation than that. So connected us to Amazon. Amazon was looking for COVID related products to sell, but you had to be vetted. Like they wouldn't just let anybody on. So they were like, this looks awesome. Like we're going to put you through the system quickly. And then we got on Amazon, and then it was just like, the whole thing just like took basically. So for the rest of lockdown for about, I don't know how long it ended up being, maybe 8, 9 months, 10 months, something like that. We were like this mask company that we were shipping everything ourselves, and 8 to 10 hours a day. And it was just like, it took off because Amazon is a beast and everybody was freaking out at that moment in time. And we were just like the demand. So we were just like, super grateful for how that all unfolded, because it allowed for us to be employed, to continue to make an income, and to sort of thrive in a way throughout the whole pandemic. And right into when I was able to pick up my business a little bit sooner than he was. And so by the time I was able to start back into my business, demand had been slowly dwindling. Basically it was easy for him to kind of keep it going on his own, and that couple of months, and then he was able to start working again. So
And is
yeah.
that company still around, or did you guys fold it up?
No, we folded. I mean, the whole goal was to just have it be like a moment in time. I had no idea that it could ever take off in the way that it did. But yeah, I mean, again, it was just like timing more than anything, just having that idea and then having it be like perfectly aligned with what was happening in the world, and being able to kind of like offer a service that everybody needed at that moment in time. And no, it just like, we knew that like eventually, as more people and companies and masks started to become like readily available, thank God, and then like better quality masks like the K95 or KN95, whatever they were called, started to become available to everybody. The demand just started to dwindle, and we kind of just wrote it out until we were selling, I don't know, like 25 masks a day or something. And then we were just like, okay, let's just stop, basically.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
So queenthebook.com. So will people get them on December 8th, or they start shipping then? So like before Christmas?
They're going to start shipping on December 8th. So you'll get them if you order now up until Christmas. You'll get them like before Christmas if it's like a gift idea, So yeah.
And these books, correct me if I'm wrong, but these books have it's a scratch and sniff, and they have your scent, your musk in them. Is that correct, or did I make that up?
I mean, that would be like slightly creepy.
Well, come on.
But
no, you're signing them, right? You're signing some of them.
Yes, we're signing some of them.
That's what it was. I mix shit up all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could sell the other version on like OnlyFans or something, but
nice. Hey, I mean, a lot of people got rich during COVID on OnlyFans.
Oh yeah, it's like you're either selling like masks or you're selling yourself, and both things
toes,
became,
or you're selling yourself,
or you're selling yourself only wearing a mask. Yeah. Yeah, both things I think were very successful at that moment in time. Yeah, so currently on the website, you can get like the book by itself. You can get a version that has my signature, and then you can get another version that is Bianca Del Rio, who's on the cover, a signed copy with her signature and my signature together. So we've got a choice of the three versions.
Well, I hope it sells out. I'm looking forward to getting mine.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's been met so far with pretty good reception. I mean, everybody, especially who has seen the book in person, seems to unanimously be really into it. I wish that everybody could see the book in person versus, just seeing seeing it online. But yeah, and we're going to be doing a launch event in Los Angeles. There'll be more details about that rolling out in the next couple of weeks. But if you're local, and you want to come to that, there'll be a way to get tickets for that. And that'll also be sort of rolled into that as well. So if you bought a book and if you want to buy a book there, I'll be there signing copies. And then hopefully we will be doing a version of that at a few different cities, Texas, hopefully Palm Springs,
St. Louis,
New York.
St. Louis on the map? Probably not.
You never know. I mean, yeah. Hopefully, I mean, yeah. The better reception that it has, the more likely I think we are to travel around and do different events and things. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. So
also, I want to mention too, really quickly, that this event is actually going to be an exhibition as well. So we're going to have about 16 limited edition prints of things that are in the book that are going to be available to purchase at this event. And then, so that's just like another cool thing that we're doing that, as a part of this bigger project.
You want to go through your Instagram? Because I think I'm doing this with everyone.
I'd love to.
All right, sweet.
I don't think I've ever gone through my Instagram with anybody.
Are you a little nervous?
Yeah, there's a slight moment where I was like, do I have anything on
there? Do I want this to happen?
Want to talk about? No. I think it's all good though.
All right, so I'm starting with everyone, and I'm just going to start with the very last photo. What's the story here?
Well, this is actually cool because I can all relevant to like the most recent things I've done. So one of the newer things that I'm doing is I'm working. There's a photographer named David Suh, who a lot of people will probably know from social media, TikTok especially, and then also Instagram. He is starting a studio collective in Los Angeles called Dasu Studios. It hasn't like officially launched yet. There's kind of like we've been slowly building towards that. This was one of the most recent shoots that I did with Dasu Studios. So they're basically like a studio collective. If you think about them in terms of they are sort of repping me now for like everyday portrait clients.
Cool.
And so so this was one of the last shoots that I did with them. So
looks like a 20-year-old Apple box. I only like the old ones. I don't like the new ones. If it's not 20
I'm
years
the
old,
same. I really only like the old ones that are like the wood, like really like worn out. I'm all about like weathered props and things.
Ooh, weatheredprops.com would be a good business.
That would be.
You just every Apple box has like a whole story.
Or like somebody could make a lot of money reselling old props, because the amount of times that people hit me up and they're like, where did you get that chair or that stool or that whatever, and how difficult it seems to be to find like really good, just like classically worn like wooden kind of props. It doesn't seem to be very easy, and that could be a successful like resale business for someone.
Yeah, weatheredprops.com. I'm gonna buy it. Actually, I don't need any more URLs. I have a URL problem. Right. All right, backdrops. Who do you get your backdrops from?
So these backdrops are Franklin backdrops. Most of the ones that I have currently are Franklin backdrops. I'm about to get an Oliphant.
Those are nice.
So I'll be doing more stuff with them in the coming.
All right, who's this guy?
Year. I shot this. This was super fast turnaround time. So last Thursday, I okay, how do I describe this for some of you guys know? So there is a competition that is a international male leather international Mr. Leather competition that has existed
like
since I think since the 80s, or could even be going back further than that. So it's an international competition, but there's local competitions that the winners of the local to compete in the thing. So this was in Palm Springs. Last weekend was Palm Springs Leather Pride. So it's like the leather community of the queer community comes together. And they had their Palm Springs Mr. Leather 2024 competition on last Friday. And so I came in and I photographed the 4 finalists of the competition and then quickly turned those images around that evening because they were then used the next day for like a silent auction. They were printed and framed for this like dinner. And then the day after that was the actual competition. And so they used them for the competition as well.
Nice. And is this Mr. Leather? Did he win it?
No, so this one is, you can scroll through like there's like a carousel of images and
that's not oh yeah, here we go.
So these are the finalists. The next person, I believe, was so this is who ended up winning the Palm Springs Mr. Leather.
If I could rock a leather shirt, I would in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
You might be surprised. Sometimes you just need to try it.
So I need to come to this next year, is what you're saying.
Right. Right.
So is it always during the summer? Ooh, like that red one? Ooh.
I do love I love how that red pops. I believe it always does take place. Well, no. I mean, this is, what are we moving into? Are we considered in fall right now?
Well, fall is long gone. The Midwest. We have.
So we're in the winter,
fall, and we're in winter.
I don't know. I'm in
you guys
California.
Don't have seasons
it's just
there, like it's just always nice.
Yeah, it's just always nice. It's like it's starting to be a little bit cooler, but we still have days where it's like 90 degrees. So so this was a fun
time. No, springtime. So this takes place. This just took place. So
took place last week. Yeah.
Oh, leather in Palm Springs doesn't seem like that would be the best place to have it. Like, is it just a sweaty mess some years? It's got to be, right?
I don't know what it's like in previous years because this is the first time I've ever been involved. But
all right, fair enough.
Luckily, the evening that I went to the formal dinner, and luckily, like it had cooled off quite a bit, so it wasn't so bad. But yeah, I can imagine it could be
Oh, there's that looks like Felix. It is. Look at the head of hair. I'm so jealous at his head of hair.
And just like perfectly messy look that he's always rocking it.
Yeah, seriously. Like I haven't shaved in 39 years and it's starting to come in, but I can't rock a stash like that.
Right.
Jealous.
I took
like a mane of hair.
Yeah. Yeah. We did that in September. I just shot that in my hotel room. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Tell me when to stop. What is one? Oh, so you do a lot of self-portraits, yeah?
I do a lot of self-portraits.
What brought this about, and how many frames did it take before you were like, got it?
Oh, I mean, it totally depends, but well, I was gonna say usually it's a lot of frames, but for this, I don't think it actually was that many. It was maybe like less than 100 frames. But I don't know. It's when I create a self-portrait, it's anything from feeling inspired through some sort of emotional turmoil I'm going through or something that's happening in my life to this came about because there's a couture designer that I know who created that piece and saw the previous things that I had posted and was like, would love to collaborate. So we got together and they basically dressed me for this specific thing, which was super fun. Like I want to do more of that for sure.
Nice. Is this your studio?
Yeah. So this is my personal studio space.
Look at this light. So does it just, this like is the angle and it gets bigger out from there and just huge
Yeah,
natural
that's sort
light
of like, it's sort of
on it.
like the corner unit, but it's just like a weird shaped corner, sort of.
That's nice. Look at that light. I bet it's just gorgeous. Which way does that face?
Uh, that's a good question. So the sun rises on the left side, coming through the left, that left window, and then rises over the building, and then sets
Oh, so
through
you've
the
just
right
got
window.
great natural light 24/7. Well,
Yeah, but I mean, like that photo, nothing about that photo is lit with natural light.
yeah. Oh,
It's literally like I completely lit the whole thing, and then just wanted to have it look like it was, you know, lit.
all right. Any projects that
Oh wait,
stand
wait,
out
go up to go up two things right there.
right here?
Yeah. So that was actually when I photographed the cover of my book. That the idea was to potentially, so that's what the final result was. And then the original, one of the possibilities was to have the back cover of the book be that image, that previous image, to kind of show like, oh, this is what that image looks like from behind, kind of.
Oh, nice.
Um,
I love that.
not what ended up making the cut, but um, but it was like, it was a cool idea, and I'm glad we did it, and it just ended up being like uh, a cool photo. You know,
Yeah, I love that.
we clearly shot this during the pandemic. 2 masks.
Are people still wearing masks like just walking around in LA, or is that long gone? I occasionally see one in
Uh,
St. Louis.
every once in a while, yeah. I mean, I'm still known to do it sometimes because if I've got something going on that I need to show up for, like that book launch event, I might wear a mask around like the week before because I'm like, I just don't want to fuck around with getting COVID and just not being able to go.
Yeah, I kind of want to do it just so I have a reason not to talk to people. You know, I'm not a big
Right.
public talker. You know, I just want to like get to where I'm going and don't bother
Oh wait, so
me.
right there, click
Is it-
over to the right.
oh,
Well, okay, that's actually, it was a cool thing that I did with there's a non called the Guide Dogs of the Desert in Palm Springs, and so we photographed. They raise dogs that eventually become people's guide dogs across the United States, and they'll have
oh,
like a
nice.
graduation ceremony for the dogs where the owners will come and they will uh, meet the dogs that they're going to end up adopting.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, that was like, I this is some of my favorite kind of work to do. Like I love creating work for nonprofits, for like um, just work that like serves a bigger purpose, really. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
I love being able to do that. And then this, so these are my friends in Palm Springs who opened a cat cafe in the last few months,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
um, I just thought it would be like, I just thought it'd be cool to see if I could capture an interesting portrait of them with all the cats. And
Yeah,
it
that's
was an
awesome.
interesting challenge, especially because all of that like those windows behind them are super reflective, and so it was like uh, that was a fun one to problem
Yeah,
solve.
reflections. It's never fun.
Yeah,
Oh, it's just about that time of year.
I know. It
Oh,
was
this
funny.
is you, isn't it?
Yeah. This is me and my dog Wilbur.
Oh, what a
I've
good
done
boy.
3 iterations of some version of like me and my partner being tied up in Christmas lights. Um, and I just got hired actually 2 weeks ago to photograph a couple and their dog because they saw these portraits that I did of myself and they wanted a version of this. So we did a photo where they are sitting back to back and literally like tied up, like their dog tied them up in Christmas lights. So
I think I want you to do that for my family. If I
right.
could convince my daughter to go along, she's at this stage now, so she's a freshman in high school where now nothing I do is cool and I'm not funny at all. So if I could get her
Well,
to go along, I think she'd be down.
we could do it in a cool way. We could have it so that like she tied you guys up.
Oh yeah.
So she could be like, she could literally like be serving like whatever cool like attitude, like she's over it, like completely over it. I mean, that would actually be really cool to create something where it's like her whole thing is like she's over it and like not interested, but yet so she like tied you
Yep.
guys up.
I'll just bribe her with Lana Del Rey tickets and make it happen.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, all right. We're right at the hour mark. So
Okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing my
Oh
screen.
wow, that's like that was interesting.
I know that went quick. We're trying to cut
Yeah.
them down because I'm told that people stop watching after 45 minutes. But I
I'm
really
surprised
enjoyed this
people have an
conversation.
attention span. I'm surprised that people can go beyond like the like 2 minutes
Yeah,
in this day
no,
and
that's
age.
why we're gonna cut all this up into like little blurbs and send them to you. We'll
Oh
make it
yeah, I mean,
short.
I think that's super smart.
But maybe in mid-December. So we're doing this every day up until basically late January. So maybe
Okay.
at some point when the book does come out, I can like be Jimmy Fallon, like the Tonight Show, and like have it right here. We'll zoom in on it and do like a
That would
real
be
time.
amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think that it would be really cool to do something like this. Yeah, once it's out, once it's easier to purchase, like when people can just go on Amazon and snatch it up. I think that would be that'd be
yeah,
great.
absolutely. So where can everyone go to follow you outside of Instagram? Are you on TikTok? You on other platforms?
I am on TikTok, but that's not really gonna get you much because I don't share a lot on TikTok, um, at least currently. Instagram is like the best place because it's like the most frequently updated, like with whatever I have going on. Um, Facebook, I also have, just at Aaron J. Young, um, constantly getting new stuff. Um, and and then my website, I mean, I was like my sort of portfolio of work website is aaronjyoung.com. And then my studio website uh, is aaronjyoungstudio.com.
I completely forgot about. We have a question if you have time. Um,
Sure, yeah.
what tips do you have for new photographers starting out?
Um,
So
that's
many.
such a vague question. Yeah. um,
Get an accountant.
I mean, depends on like like how far into starting up you are, but um, I mean, I would say, okay, learn your craft. Okay, I'll try to. Okay, um, look at lots of other people's work and hone in on what you're most drawn to in other people's work, because that's probably ultimately like the direction to go in to develop your own style. And even if you try to completely emulate the photographers that you look up to, like it's actually, I think, kind of hard to like really fully copy another person's work because there's just so much that goes into it from a personal perspective point of view that like you'll develop your own style, like you'll develop something that becomes your own. But getting clear about what you really want to create, and then going to those sources for inspiration, is key. And if you can find any sort of mentors, whether that's like real life or online, like just people who are teaching, the faster you learn about really pricing yourself in a way that um, will sustain you, the quicker you can potentially build like a successful business. So if you can find resources that teach pricing and teach the business side of things, and then just know that like when you're dealing with pricing and reaching out to clients and reaching out to potential clients, that is going to bring up all of your insecurities when it comes to self-value and self-worth and shame and any blocks you have around money and anything you have around your own, I don't know, like connection to creating art and like the personal connection that we all feel to that. um so I would say like get into therapy or like explore the world of like self working on yourself, um, because that will also be monumental in helping to kind of further along your potential for having a successful career
I
in the
love
long
that.
run.
I think we should all be forced to go to therapy. Like it's mandatory. I know like being forced forcing everyone to do anything is bad, but I think in this case,
I mean,
if we
here's the thing
all had
though,
to go to
like
therapy, it would be better.
I've explored so many different kinds of therapy and so many different things. And talk therapy is amazing, right? Like I love talk therapy. There's a lot of other things you can do, like, you know, plant medicine, life changing, um, uh, uh, hypnotherapy, life changing. I mean, there's a lot, we live in a day and age where there's so many different massively life-changing potentially things that one can do, that, I mean, I don't even think you need to like work for years and years and years the way that people used to think that we did to like work through your stuff. Because if you're willing to like try some more of the radical things, I mean, that's where I've found the most, ultimately the most healing
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
a big
results.
proponent of plant medicine, pretty much all of them. And
Oh,
we're gonna have to talk because I do want to go see this guy in Southern California in San Diego that does hypnotherapy, and he was on like Larry King and like a bunch of helped like the transformation that they've like talked about, like going through this from like a week of work is crazy different. And it's
yeah,
to me
yeah. I
like
mean,
growing up earlier on, I've been like no fucking way, but I'm definitely at a point in my life now where like I'm trying everything. Like there's nothing
yeah,
that's
I mean,
too
it's,
for me to try.
I would, I would find it hard to believe if I didn't, I mean, I've already had my own experience that was, you know, life changing in a matter of like 2 days. And so totally it's possible. And it's amazing, you know? And so, um, yeah. And then, I mean, the other side of things is I would encourage everybody. I mean, I know this is more of like a belief kind of based thing, but like, if you're at all into spirituality, meditation, any sort of mindfulness thing, like that has also been monumental in,
Yeah. Yep.
um, allowing me to develop a greater sense of focus, which obviously helps in business, presence, getting clear with myself. Um, and I mean, now I view that as one of, I mean, like my meditation every day is like, I would say that that is the most important part of my day, because it's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
basis
Same.
of everything else that's going to unfold throughout the day.
Yep. I'm actually 4 weeks away from yoga teacher training graduation. So I do yoga every day and also meditate, I'd say like 3 to 4 times a week, but it's huge. Like it's completely
I
life
love that.
changing, not only for your body, but for your mind. Like 100%.
Totally life changing. Tomorrow, I think tomorrow I'm on a string of 110 days straight. I
Nice.
think tomorrow's 110 days. Yeah, I'm just seeing how long I can go without without dropping the ball for a day.
That's awesome. Well, I'd love to talk more with you. I could probably talk for hours, but we will let you go. Thank you so much for taking the time and look forward to talking hopefully in December when this book comes out.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me on. I look forward
All right. Awesome.
to chatting again. Thanks.
Thanks.